Namaste Nam, welcome to another episode of Nashta with Nam. Today we have really inspiring guest with us, Apeksha Jain from Gourmet Jar, and we're going to hear all about her story with this lovely breakfast that we have from Desserts and Dough. So from a French teacher to a full-fledged food business. Apeksha, how did that happen?
Well, yeah, I'm an accidental entrepreneur and I never planned to get into business, but sometimes, just life takes you in different ways. And I think it was just my passion for cooking that led me down this road, and I'm loving it. Yeah.
I love everything about your brand, how it is preservative free. You can feed it. In fact, today morning also I made pasta from your sauce. It was literally like 10 minutes and something I can feed to the kids.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. That's the idea, behind the brand, that we are trying to give you home style products which you can use to make quick meals and not compromise on health and taste both, and using ingredients which are real and which you have in your home kitchen.
So you started with your home kitchen, is that correct?
Yeah, I started this business from home. For the first 3 years, it was like a small home business, and then eventually, as the demand came in and as the word of mouth happened, I moved it out of home and set up a small unit, and then eventually it grew from there.
So for 3 years, like I know Indian kitchens are really busy, like there's always food cooking there. So how did you manage? Like was there a allocated time कि इस time पे ये वाला business का होगा, ये घर की cooking होगी? Because it is sometimes challenging to manage it.
I mean, it wasn't that difficult because I lived, with my ex-husband that time. We were just two of us.
Okay.
And he used to go to work. I had time in the day, so used to cook during that time between like breakfast and dinner when I had So there was that space and time for cooking at home.
Okay, and you were making in small batches yourself, or you had
very small batches. When I started, it was just like about 1 kilo, 2 kilos maximum. I think I must have made at home must have been 5 kilos. That's the biggest probably.
Okay. And how did you spread the word at that time? Because you had no formal training, if I read it correctly.
Right. So, always having been passionate about cooking, I actually at that point in time, 2010-11, I had started a food blog, and I was amongst one of the first few food bloggers in India at that point. And I had this small community of bloggers, and when I had a Twitter page. So when I started out, I opened a Facebook page, I put it on Twitter, and that's how I got my first few customers. Okay. And because of the food blogging community, I had a lot of free PR that came that time. So like every magazine, every newspaper literally wrote about it, because especially what I was doing was very unique. It was something which didn't exist in India. There was that gap in the market for about more than 10 years back, right?
Yes.
So the whole natural, artisanal, organic space was very new.
Yes.
And in the jam and preserve space especially, because that category has always been known for like additives, chemicals, coloring, preservatives. So what I was doing was artisanal, freshly made, no preservative, no chemicals, no coloring, and unique flavors. So I was creating flavors like a mango jalapeno preserve, a banana rum jam. So they were unique as well. Yes. So that kind of got a lot of word of mouth publicity going, and that's how the word spread. And initially I also did a lot of small farmers markets and those events that happen in
organic markets.
Where I did a lot of tastings as well, and then eventually food festivals where people got to sample the products, and that's when it started growing.
Okay, so when did you decide that now you want to move out of your home kitchen and move to a commercial kitchen?
So this happened in 2015. So when I was still doing this from home, and Oberoi Gurgaon chef actually was looking for somebody local to make jams for them, and someone recommended my name to them, and we had like a year of back and forth and negotiations and trials and all of that happened. But after a year, I finally got like a contract for Oberoi Hotels for the single serve small jams that you get in hotel breakfast tables.
That's awesome.
And then obviously I had to it was a huge thing, right? So had to move out of home, set up a unit, hire few people to help me get my licenses, all of those things, get the compliances in place, and that was a big shift that happened.
Was it a big investment as well into a commercial space?
I mean, it was not a huge investment because we were still doing it manually. We were not, we didn't invest in machinery, but of course I had to invest in the space and the rentals and all of that. But it was not, wasn't massive, I would say.
Yeah. So basically, you took baby steps, and then and when. So when was the stage when you said that I want to get machines in? I want to expand it. Do you use machines? Or
actually, we are still like 85%, I would say, manual.
Wow.
We are still not automated.
With that volume? Wow.
Yeah, we have like a 30 women production team. So all our production is done by women.
wow.
So every jar that you buy is all made by women only, and it's like mostly handmade right now. But yeah, we are reaching a stage now where we need to automate because we are like bursting our capacity now.
So I keep hearing from entrepreneurs on food business, and I have also run a food startup myself. So the challenge of scaling is a very very big roadblock because हमें लगता है कि हमारी USP यही है कि we're making it ourselves, we are making it in the small batches, we're making it from home. The moment you have to take that leap, people struggle to maintain the same authenticity, but you have been able to do it for your brand. So I just wanted to understand how how you've been able to crack that code.
Yeah. No, it is definitely what you're saying is absolutely right. Making 2 to 5 kg batches at home versus making like a 50 kg or 100 kg in a commercial setup, it's very different. And when you scale up, you will have to tweak your recipe. You will have to do lots of trial and error, and there'll be batches that will go to waste, which also happened with me. But I think to scale up, one is understanding of the food science. Like I've never studied food. I've never I didn't have the technical aspect, the knowledge, right? So I like hired somebody from a food technology background, and eventually to scale up had to understand the science behind preserving, right? So when I'm making a jam like a 1 kg, 2 kg at home, and when I'm making a 50 kg, obviously you have to understand what is really happening, the chemical reaction. So science of food is very important. So I think learning that, either you learn it directly yourself or you have somebody in your team who understands that aspect, who can teach you. So I learned from that person, right? So that helps a lot. And then of course, there are so the reason we've been able to maintain quality consistency is because we check the final parameters. So we know, okay, that the sweetness, there are instruments that you get to measure the sweetness level, the pH level, things like that. So we use those to monitor the final parameters and make sure that whatever is being made, it reaches those final parameters, and we tweak the recipe as per that. So sometimes our fruit may be less sweet, sometimes it may be very ripe and it'll be a little extra sweet. So we have to tweak our recipe a little bit, and that's what the beauty of artisanal products is, right? Because it's not a formula, and it's not like a mass produced thing. So we tweak the recipe a little bit, and then we reach those final parameters. And I think having the right team helps a lot, because the women that are making these, they've been with me for about 10 years also, from day one.
Wow.
And they are supervisors of their departments, and they know exactly what I want, how I want it, and they make sure they work like it's their business. So that also helps. Having the right people is very, very important.
So when you started out, there was a huge mental block कि अगर healthy है तो tasty नहीं होगा. Like that was so how did you break that barrier? Like was tasting a big part of it, or sending tasters?
Yeah, I think sampling was, obviously people think, I feel that there's a perception that, okay, for health you have to compromise on taste, right?
Yes.
But it's not necessary, especially certain categories of products, like when you're making jam, when you're making like spreads and mustard and salad dressing, there are natural preservatives which are there. So sugar is a natural preservative. You have, salt and vinegar which are natural. Like, for example, when it talk about pickles, right? Pickles are preserved naturally. Nobody adds additional preservatives. Right? So there's a art and science behind it. And you can have natural preservatives which are already there in your food, which will help you, have a shelf life, right? So you don't have to compromise on taste, and you don't have to compromise on health either. So there are certain things which you can do to balance it out. And obviously what we do is we make sure that we use only real ingredients. We don't use any artificial chemicals, preservative. And when you make people try it, I think sampling is the best way to go, and especially food, right? The proof is in the taste. So you have to make sure that you give out as many free samples as you can. In the beginning, we did a lot of events, we did a lot of sampling, and even in stores, when we got into Modern Bazaar and into all these stores, we had people standing there with the trays doing sampling. So when people taste the product, they realize the purity and the freshness of it, and of course that it's healthy and tasty.
Yes. Because a lot of time people also feel कि sample दे दूँगे तो मेरा cost लग जाएगा, like it's a cost to the company.
Yeah.
So I am so glad that you mentioned it, because I think in food business there's no better marketing other than, like, if you're confident of your product that you're selling, like people have to taste it.
Yeah, of course, two things, sampling and then of course word of mouth. If your product is good, then people will talk about it, right? So
I wanted to know, how did you crack Modern Bazaar, like as an artisanal brand? Like they have a lot of big brands that they showcase on the shelf. So how did that happen?
It's not easy, honestly. Offline retail is very, very challenging, and there are, of course you have to, chase them, call them. It's very hard to get them to respond to you. You have to make sure you give them samples. You keep calling them. You have to follow up, basically. It's like a sales role, right? You have to keep following up, keep chasing them, keep calling, repeat, again and again, and until they actually. It may take 6 months, it may take a year, but you have to make sure that they feel that okay, you are really interested, and also you have to offer them something different. So when I started out, because this space was a little, I would say, white space, right? There were very few, or there was one or two artisanal, clean label jams or condiment brands in the country that time. So they didn't have that option for their customer. So when you're providing them something which is unique, which doesn't exist, then they're more likely to kind of take your brand in. And of course, it all comes with a cost, right? You have to pay some listing fees to get into offline. So it is difficult, but you can do it. It comes at a cost, but you have to be very certain of your product before you do that.
Yes, and I also wanted to ask you now, like people have understanding of these products, and there are a lot of companies coming up. So is retention a challenge with so many brands coming in the market now?
I think it is a challenge, yes, for sure. There is a lot more competition, but I think one is that if your product is good, then people do come back to you, and your customers are loyal as long as you don't compromise. With scale, you have to make sure you don't compromise on your quality and your consistency, and your customers will come back to you unless they find something lacking in your product. Then they look for other options. And but of course, with competition, I think the space is also growing. So there is enough room for more people as well, because people are getting more conscious, they're getting more aware, and they want to eat healthier.
COVID.
Yeah, especially after COVID, people want to eat healthier. They are checking labels. So I think that the segment of people that is looking for these products, that's also growing. And along with that, if there's more competition, we're all building the category together, building this whole clean eating, revolution together, right? So it helps also. And I think the only thing, as a brand, you should not be worried about competition. You have to monitor them, of course, and you have to, take it as a challenge, but not be afraid of it. Because I feel that what you need to do is just stick to your, philosophy. Make sure you're true to yourself. You're, giving the customers the same value proposition, the promise that you have, told them, and you don't compromise on that. And then I think customers will come back to you.
Yes, the best I like about your pasta sauce is 88% tomatoes. And it is literally 88%. It's not something, because I love reading labels at the back also. So it's actually the real ingredients. It's not the kind of marketing sometimes brands do, that they put something in the front, and then on the label there's a different story that they're telling. So I love that storytelling about your brand as well, and you have a community on Instagram as well. So do you invest a lot in telling that these are the ingredients, or how do you communicate?
No, definitely. I think, we are a clean label brand, and that's why I had this transparent label, because I wanted people to see what you're getting inside. Say you're buying a pasta sauce and you would imagine that it's red, and then if you open a jar and you see it's kind of brownish, it's a little disappointing, right? So at least in our case, I wanted to make sure that people can see what they're buying, right? So that was one thing. And then second thing is, I think, of course, we do a lot of education on our Instagram channel. Whenever we talk to our customers, we educate them. Initially, we had a lot of resistance to the price point, because they're okay, why should I buy Indian brands at this price? I'd rather buy imported products. So you have to kind of explain to them why this is more expensive, or why real food costs more. And even in terms of, for example, our products are natural. Sometimes if you leave a jam outside, it'll catch fungus. And a lot of people are used to doing that with commercial jams, and because we've grown up in households where jams are kept on the table outside, not in the fridge, right? So a lot of people end up doing that with our products also. But then when they complain, we are happy to replace it, even though they did not keep it in the fridge. But we educate them. We tell them that because our products are real, they need to be kept in the fridge after you open them, and that's why it caught fungus, and it's a good sign. It's not a bad thing, because it means that it's actually a real product. If you make ghar pe food, you won't leave it outside, right? You will obviously, whatever's left over, you put it back in the fridge. So similar thing with our products. So we do this kind of education with our customers on social media, and also directly whenever we interact with them.
So how do you divide, how much is your B2B, B2C, and these retail? How do you divide when you plan your marketing strategy?
Right now, of course, our marketing is mostly online. We don't do that much offline marketing as such. So marketing is mostly on social media, and of course also on quick commerce, like on Blinkit, and when you're searching for certain products, we do advertise so that our products show up, they're more relevant to those keywords. So most of our marketing spends are going there.
Online marketing.
Yeah, online marketing.
Yeah, so that is something you would recommend, upcoming brands to invest more on online compared to trying to crack the modern trade?
Yeah, I would say for any new brand, if you're starting out, like, modern trade and offline retail is very, very tricky. It's a monster. It's also very, very capital intensive. So you don't want to start there for sure. I think first you should start online, because online you can test out a lot of things. You can test out your price points. You can, turn off, turn on. There are a lot of levers that you can use to understand your product, understand your audience. And after that, once you know that, okay, you've got success, you know that there is product market fit, you've got a product which people are willing to pay for, what price they're willing to pay for it, and also that you're able to sell it. You know your unit economics, you know how much you have to actually spend to acquire a customer, all of those things. Then uske baad you should go into offline, क्योंकि offline में बहुत पैसे लगते हैं honestly.
Apeksha, I wanted to ask you, for our audience, what product market fit is?
So product market fit is basically कि जो आप product बना रहे हो उसकी demand होनी चाहिए, and there should be somebody willing to pay that price that you want to sell at, right? For example, you may be very good at making some product. For example, you make something at home and you feel कि you should try selling it, but maybe अगर आप वो बेचना चाहोगे, there's nobody to buy it, maybe nobody wants to buy it, so then there's no point, there's no fit over there. For example, I'll tell you in my case, I launched initially product जो मुझे अच्छे लगते थे, right? So मैंने शुरू में, like, I had an orange mustard, which was something, for me it was very interesting, very unique, mustard flavored with orange. I launched it, but उसके बाद फिर, like, I got so many returns from the market. People did not understand it because it was too, I think, ahead of its time. It was too early. Maybe if I launch it now, it will work, but उस समय पे it was too early. तो लोगों को समझ में नहीं आता है. तो mustard itself is a category which is a little different. Then उसके ऊपर it was orange mustard. So I got a lot of returns, and obviously nobody was willing to pay for that, or nobody wanted that product, right? So that's where there was a disconnect. So I had to eventually learn that I have to sell what people want. So whatever you're selling, the product that you're creating, uski demand honi chahiye, people should be willing to pay, and also the right price. So when you figure these things, then you have like product market fit.
How do you do that, with sampling, or how, like, you actually spend money on the launch and then you realize it later that this is probably not the right product for the market?
See, I think initially क्या होता है, you have to, जितने आपके network है, friends, family, सबको you give samples, you get feedback from them, right? Ask them, like, that the people that you know, right? उनसे you have to ask, are they willing to pay for this? If they were to pay, how much would they pay for it, right? Also look at your competition, कि वो कितने पे बेच रहे हैं. So similar pricing you have to keep. You can't be way up or way down, right? So I think these are the kind of things you have to test out before actually going in for the launch. And once you launch, also make sure that you do a lot of sampling, get a lot of feedback, because feedback is, and ask people to be more critical, shuru mein, because then that's what helps you improve.
People are sometimes also nice, they don't say it up
but you should tell people, especially your friends and family, you should tell them, give me the negative, feedback that you can.
You
because
should have the courage to take it.
Because that's what helps you improve, right? When people give you the negative, positive, if everybody tells you positive things, you won't improve it, right? You'll think it's perfect. But there's always room for improvement. So you have to ask for negative feedback actually.
Yeah. So that makes sense. I wanted to ask you, if somebody wants to start out a food business, what are the top 3 tips that you're going to give to them?
I would say that firstly, your food business, जो product which you're selling, it should taste good. Like, taste is very, very important in food, because you can get the first buy, but then repeat customer, for your customer to come back to you to repeat the purchase, it has to taste good. So, don't compromise on the taste. That's one thing. Second thing, I think, build a lot of resilience, because there will be lots of ups and downs. So you have to, I think the single most important thing as a founder, as an entrepreneur, you need is resilience. You'll fall many times, you have to get back up and keep going. And the third thing you have to have is passion, because when you face obstacles, setbacks, failures, so it's only the passion which keeps you going. If you don't have passion about what you're building, then you will not be able to continue down that path, irrespective of all the challenges that you face.
I'm so glad that you mentioned, because I think these are very, very useful tips. But I also, this is the last question I'm asking, but I want to know, somebody who's switching from a home business to a commercial kitchen, what are the tips you're gonna, or what are the pieces of advice that you're gonna give them?
I would say, like, first fix your basics, like make sure that you have very solid operations, fundamentals, and just build the foundation very well. Uske baad, don't worry immediately about scaling up, because scale will come later. And if you scale up very fast before you actually get your operation and processes set, then you will end up having a lot of mess on your hands, and you'll end up making mistakes. So I would say that sabse pehle to, just make sure that you go slow, set the operation, set, like, your SOPs have to be very, very strong standard operating procedure for everything that you're doing, right? For all different departments. So make sure that those are all set properly. You have a strong foundation, and then look at building it up. And apart from that, I would say just, nobody knows everything. You have to learn along the way. So just don't be afraid, don't overthink, and just take the leap, and you'll figure things out along the way. You'll make mistakes, but you'll figure it out eventually.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Apeksha. So have you also faced failures? Because yours is a very successful venture today. But
No, of course, there are lots of failures.
Yeah.
Like I told you, I've launched products which have not worked. We've had lots of failures in terms of marketing which did not work. There are, things. I mean, things go up and down all the time in business, I feel. So there are lots of failures and setbacks that you face, and you have to keep overcoming them.
yeah. Can you explain SOPs for our audience, for them to understand what actually they are?
So SOPs are standard operating procedures, and basically you have to set for whatever process you're doing. For example, if somebody has to cook a batch of the product that you're making, there'll be certain practices that they have to follow. कि उसको कितने temperature पे डालना है, how much quantity, or the recipe. Apart from the recipe, also how you will make it as well, right? The storage instructions, the sourcing, all of that, right? So that is part of your SOP essentially, and you have to make this in a way कि आज if I am doing it or tomorrow somebody else is doing it, अगर वो same process follow करे तो you will get the same outcome, and that's how you are able to manage consistency and quality, right? So even if today I am not sitting and making every bottle of jam myself, but even if my team is doing it, but they are following a set process जो हम देते हैं उन्हें, so उससे the outcome is the same essentially. And similarly for even operations, like if you have an online order, उसका जो है एक process होता है उसको process करने के लिए, right? You have to first print the labels, you have to, there are certain things online you have to do. So that is an SOP basically, कि the steps that you have to take to execute that procedure essentially.
It was so lovely to have you on the show. I'm sure I've learned so much today from you, and I'm sure our audience is going to love this episode. Let's dig into the food.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you so much, Apeksha. This is a small hamper from our side. It's a healthy snacking brand, Sabor.
Thank you so much.
One of our moms only.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Pleasure
for
being
coming.
here.